Ethan's small fingers hovered over the remote, the flickering glow of the TV casting long, shifting shadows across the dimly lit living room. His eyes darted back to the screen, where a man and woman moved in a way he didn't understand but couldn't look away from. Something about their expressions, their laughter, and the way they touched felt strange yet intriguing. It was as if the screen held a secret, something only adults seemed to understand. Ethan's brow furrowed slightly, his curiosity piqued as he leaned closer to the flickering light of the television. The hum of the TV filled the quiet room, the glow illuminating his face in soft, shifting colors. Unable to keep his discovery to himself, he shifted on the worn sofa and called out, his voice echoing down the hallway, "Lily, come here. Look at this." Lily's soft footsteps padded down the wooden floor, muffled yet distinct against the backdrop of the TV's low buzz. Her face peeked around the corner, the hint of a smile forming on her lips as she caught sight of her brother perched on the couch. "What is it, Ethan?" she asked, her tone light but curious. Climbing onto the couch beside him, she tucked her knees to her chest and nestled into the corner. Ethan didn't reply immediately, his hand lifting to point at the screen. His silence made her pause, her wide eyes darting to follow his gaze. The screen flickered with vivid colors, fast movements, and figures that seemed larger than life. Lily tilted her head, captivated by the unfamiliar scenes playing out before them. The siblings sat there in silence, their breaths almost synchronized as they absorbed the rapid succession of images flashing across the screen. The faint scent of dinner leftovers from earlier hung in the air, blending with the clean, slightly soapy fragrance of the couch cushions. The rhythmic drum of the TV seemed to pull them deeper into its spell. They didn't understand the words being spoken, grown-up conversations filled with complex emotions and unspoken meanings, but the music's rhythm and the charged energy between the characters drew them in. It was as though the screen was a window to another world, one they didn't quite belong to but couldn't look away from. "Why are they doing that?" Lily asked suddenly, her innocent voice cutting through the quiet. She tilted her head, her expression puzzled, as though searching for an answer she wasn't sure Ethan could give. "I don't know," Ethan replied with a shrug, his eyes still glued to the screen. "Maybe it's something fun that grown-ups do." His voice carried a tone of quiet wonder, a reflection of the question swirling in his mind. He wasn't entirely sure what he was seeing, but the adults' laughter and the way they leaned toward each other made it seem important, like a secret they were unknowingly sharing. What neither of them realized was that the show they were watching wasn't meant for their young eyes. The moments of laughter and closeness they witnessed weren't playful games or innocent interactions. They were glimpses into a world layered with meaning far too complicated and inappropriate for their tender ages. Yet, like a seed scattered on fertile soil, the images quietly planted themselves in their minds, taking root in ways they wouldn't fully understand until much later. Days passed, and yet the memory of the show lingered like a shadow that refused to fade. Ethan couldn't shake the images from his mind, the way the adults smiled, the way their hands brushed in a gesture that seemed so intentional. It felt mysterious, and the thought of it lingered like an unfinished puzzle. One afternoon, as he and Lily sat on the floor of their small, cluttered bedroom surrounded by scattered toys and crayons, he broke the silence. "Lily," he began, his tone light yet deliberate, almost as though he'd been working up the courage to speak. "Do you remember that thing we saw on TV?" Lily looked up from the drawing she'd been working on, her crayon pausing mid-stroke. Her eyes met Ethan's, her expression uncertain. The question hung in the air between them, thick with a weight neither of them fully understood yet. The memory of the show flickered in her mind, bringing with it a strange mixture of curiosity and discomfort. She nodded slowly, unsure of where the conversation was headed. "Yeah," she replied softly. "Why?" Ethan leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper as though sharing a forbidden secret. His next words would change everything. Lily's playful smile faltered as she looked up from the puzzle she was working on. "I don't know, Brother Ethan," she replied, her voice quiet. "It didn't feel right." "Let's try it," Ethan said, a glint of excitement in his eyes that didn't match the weight of his words. To him, this was just another game, an experiment born out of the curiosity that had always defined their sibling bond. He didn't see the danger, the wrongness, in what he was asking. Lily hesitated, her small hands fiddling nervously with the edge of her dress. "Mom said we shouldn't copy things we see on TV," she reminded him, her voice wavering. "Come on, Lily," Ethan insisted, his voice turning coaxing. "It's just pretend. No one will know." Her heart raced, torn between the urge to say no and the fear of disappointing her brother. Finally, feeling trapped, she nodded. "Okay, Brother Ethan. Just this once." The quiet house seemed to hold its breath as the children stepped into a realm they were too young to navigate. Ethan's laughter, so innocent yet misplaced, echoed down the hallway, mingling with Lily's sudden, heart-wrenching cry of pain. She pulled away, tears streaming down her flushed cheeks, clutching her chest as though trying to shield herself from the memory of what had just happened. "This is wrong, Brother Ethan," she cried, her voice trembling. "I never want to do this again in my life." Ethan looked at her, confused and frustrated. He hadn't meant to hurt her. To him, it was just another shared adventure, like the time they built a fort out of pillows or played hide-and-seek in the backyard. But this time, there was no laughter, no joy, only pain and regret. As the days passed, the incident left an unspoken heaviness between them. Lily avoided Ethan's gaze, her once bright eyes clouded with unease. She felt a sharp ache in her chest every time he tried to approach her, his persistence growing more unsettling with each passing day. When their mother came home briefly one afternoon, Lily saw a flicker of hope. "Mom, can I talk to you?" she asked, her small voice barely audible over the clicking of her mother's high heels on the tiled floor. Mrs. Carter glanced at her daughter but didn't pause. "Not now, Lily. I'm in a hurry," she replied, her tone distracted. She grabbed her keys, her phone pressed to her ear, and disappeared out the door without a second glance. Lily stood frozen, the lump in her throat swelling until she could barely breathe. The world felt too big and cold, even in the familiarity of their home. She shuffled back to her room, where she curled up on her bed and let the tears come. Her heart ached not just from what had happened with Ethan but from the crushing loneliness of knowing no one was listening. It was only when Lily finally sought refuge with their neighbor, Aunt Grace, that she found a glimmer of relief. The older woman knelt beside her, taking her trembling hands in her own. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, her voice soft and full of concern. "The dam broke." Lily poured out everything, her words stumbling over each other in halting sobs. Aunt Grace listened without interruption, her brow furrowed with worry. When Lily finally finished, Grace wrapped her in a warm hug. "You did the right thing by telling me," she said gently. "You don't have to go through this alone." When Aunt Grace confronted the Carters, their initial reaction was disbelief. "Ethan wouldn't do something like that," Mr. Carter insisted, his voice defensive. "Maybe they misunderstood what they saw," Mrs. Carter added, her expression tight. Aunt Grace stood firm. Children absorb everything they see, whether we realize it or not. You've been so focused on work that you've forgotten to pay attention to what your children are watching. The Carters fell silent, the weight of her words pressing down on them. For the first time, they saw the cracks in their seemingly perfect lives. They realized that their absence had left their children vulnerable, exposed to things no child should face alone. Determined to make amends, Mr. Carter began monitoring the children's screen time, ensuring they only watched age-appropriate shows. Mrs. Carter adjusted her work hours, making family time a priority. They also sought the help of a counselor, someone who could guide Ethan and Lily through the emotions they couldn't yet understand. Slowly, the family began to heal. Evenings were now filled with board games, shared meals, and bedtime stories. The silence that once filled their home was replaced by laughter and connection. The painful memory became a turning point, a reminder of the importance of being present for one another. One evening, as they sat together on the living room floor, Lily looked up at her parents. "Thank you for listening to me now," she said softly, her words filled with a quiet strength. Her parents exchanged a glance, their eyes brimming with tears. In that moment, they understood the true gift of family, being there, fully and unconditionally. It wasn't just about providing for their children, it was about listening, loving, and creating a home where they could feel safe.